Hi, welcome to another knowledge section with Aswabiat Robert. Today I'll be talking about CSS preprocessors. And in the content, we have CSS processors, preprocessors, types, features, and why use it. First, let's talk about what CSS is. CSS is short for Cascading Style Sheets. It is a language used for describing the presentation of a document written in a markup language such as HTML. Now, what are preprocessors? According to MDN Web Docs, a preprocessor is a program that lets you generate CSS from the preprocessor's own unique syntax. It extends the default functionality of CSS and enables you to use logic in your CSS code. Logic such as variables, nesting, inheritance, mixing, functions, and mathematical operations. Types of preprocessors. The three most popular and stable CSS processors are SAS, LESS, and Stylus. CSS processors all do similar things, but in different ways and with their own unique syntaxes. Each of them have some advanced features unique to them and their own echo tools as well. So let's dive into the first most popular type, which is SAS. So SAS stands for Syntactically Awesome Style Sheet. It is an extension to CSS and a preprocessor. SAS was designed by Hampton Cattney and developed by Natalie Wenzenbaum in 2006. It reduces repetition of CSS and therefore saves time. Now let's assume that you have a project. Let's look at how practical SAS is or how it helps. Let's assume you have a project and you're going to be using these three color schemes in your entire project. Instead of always writing the code for the color schemes when you get there, you can use CSS feature variable you can use CSS, sorry, you can use SAS to create a variable, and that you can do by um that you can do oh my god, you can so instead of always writing the code for these colored schemes at every time, therefore repeating it, you can create a variable using SAS. When you create that variable, all you just have to do is reference it in your work. The first snippet here shows the color schemes. The second one shows the variables that have been created using SAS. That's the hash, the dollar sign primary one, which now refers to the first color scheme, and then primary two and the dollar sign primary three, all respectively reflects the other two color schemes. So all you simply have to do is invoke the variables that you've already created by just simply, instead of creating that color scheme code and all of that, all you just have to do is call the variable that you've already created. So this makes your work very easy, saves time, and makes your code more less bulky. Let's move on to the next type, which is the less. So according to tutorialpoint.com, less is a CSS preprocessor that enables customizable, manageable, and reusable style sheet for websites. It is a dynamic style sheet language that extends the capability of CSS, and it is cross-browser friendly. So how do we use less to create a variable? Yeah, so the snippet below demonstrates that to create a variable with less, you use the at sign. So what you just do, the first line here has created a variable of width, giving it 10 pixels, and then the height now becomes width plus 10 pixels. So all you have to do in your project right now is to um, call the variables that you've already created. The snippet above shows how your less compiler will interpret the variable below. So it means that when you mention width there, it knows that you already created a variable of width that is 10%, 10 pixels, and then a height which is um and then the height, which is the width, which is already 10 pixels, plus another 10 pixels, giving it 20 pixels. So all you have to do is always call the variables that you have already created, and the compiler will interpret it into your CSS project for you. The last most popular type that we'll be talking about is the stylus. So stylus is a dynamic style sheet preprocessor language that is compiled into cascading sheets. It was created by T.J. Holloway, a former programmer for Node.js and the creator of the Luna language. It is written in Jade and Node.js. Unlike CSS, which uses braces to open and close the declarations, declaration blocks, indentation, indent. Unlike CSS, Unlike CSS, which uses braces to open and close declaration blocks, indentation is used in stylus, and additional semicolons are optional. It means you can leave that out. So stylus allows variables to be defined. However, unlike less and sass, it doesn't use a symbol to define variables. Additionally, variable assignment is done automatically by separating the property and keyword. In this way, variables are similar to variables in Python. So let's see how this is being used in a real life project. Yes. So like we said in the previous slide, these variables can be created and they don't necessarily need semicolons and other uh, so like we said in the previous slide, creating variables with stylus do not necessarily need semicolons, and they do not need any symbol to um, create these variables. Unlike oh, so creating variables with stylus, you do not necessarily need symbols like I've earlier mentioned, and you do not also need semicolons. All of those can be omitted, but the stylus compiler will still be able to translate it for you. So here, a variable is created, which is variable message is created, and then the value given is hello world. So if in your project you just go ahead and mention that content, the compiler is going to translate it as hello world for you. So this completely makes your work very easy. You don't all the time have to um, create full lines of code. All you just have to do is call the function that you've already created, and the compiler will translate it into your CSS, making your work again simple, fast, and readable. So let's now talk about the features that are offered by these compilers or preprocessors. The truth is, we only spoke about the variable aspect of these preprocessors, but they offer more than that. Although their syntaxes are different and at the same time similar, but what you need to know is that they they function in the same way, and you can use any one of them that you choose to use depending on the requirement of your project, depending on the uniqueness of what you want. You can study them and use the one that better fits your project. So features like loop, extend, import, mixing, nesting, operations, and conditionals, together with variable that we already considered are offered by these CSS preprocessors. So, what advantages do we have for using them? Flexibility, unlimited reusability, reduced development time, which is the most important of all, because when you save time, you'll be able to do more. Readability and easier to maintain CSS structure, adding logic and other functionalities. So you see that normally in CSS all you can do is style things, but using compilers, using CSS preprocessors, you'll be able to actually program something as if you're using a programming language. Yes, SAS and less makes it very easy for you to use CSS as if you are using a programming language. So the advantages are way more than this, but we choose to just stop here. So thank you for listening. If you have questions, I'll be glad to look at them.